go.
Mhm.
Yeah, this leads us to our first slide, the business value of AR. So here is, we really got to understand is, one of the things we really have to understand is typically you have to know who you're talking to, whether it be an account manager or a brand manager or a marketing manager. You have to be able to talk in their language. And typically what we're seeing is, AR has predominantly in the past come from, innovation and R&D budgets, but now AR is being put into marketing budgets. AR is being put into advertising budgets. So in order to properly sell AR through, and in order to, tick the boxes on the other side for the brand, you need to be able to talk in their language. And this means, the language that they're talking in terms of when they're talking internally about brand campaigns in terms of marketing. So if you're talking to a marketing manager, some of the key points that you really want to bring up in their language is, how does AR serve them from, say, awareness to affinity to consideration or to conversion? These are all the language that the brands talk. Or, you talk about it in terms of the marketing funnel. How does AR serve their brand purpose in from attention to interest to desire to action? And a few of the things that we always talk about is, if we want to raise some awareness for a brand and maybe have some virtual merch, and this raises awareness where you can try on a virtual hat that's branded towards the brand. This is good for brand awareness. But if we're looking to work with a brand that wants to, showcase some of their product and get people into the store to buy it, even in location-based experiences, is, being able to put a vehicle or being able to put a piece of furniture near someone that's really going to show them, this is what something looks like in my space, or this is what something looks like in the, in this outdoor space. Maybe this will entice me to go to a dealership, or maybe this will entice me to go to the store to learn more about this product. And so when we're framing things in terms of augmented reality, we really want to frame it is, we say talk in their language. So, if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, but, some of the key points you can look up always is, what is the marketing funnel? What is the advertising funnel? And specifically, if you know the role of the person you're talking to, and say if it is a marketing manager, just a quick Google search on what is the language that marketing managers talk in. And these are some of the most common things that'll come up, because the most important thing is, if you can talk in their language, they're going to have that, you're going to be able to build that relationship where things are much easier to pass along, because they know that what you're talking about in terms of what they need to know. And it's an extremely important part, which fits into the people category of building trust, is you are able to, you're able to deliver things in a way that's easily consumable on the other side. Next thing we go to is, this is also about making it real. It's, AR is a great piece of content. AR is great for storytelling. AR is great for many things. But one of the things with AR is, we're in the industry. Some of the when we're talking about AR and everything around it, it comes very naturally to us. But to a lot of people, augmented reality is still an abstract concept. And so you have to be able to frame augmented reality in the way that they're talking about different campaigns, and they're talking about different types of content that they're already delivering, whether that be images or videos or different types of activation that the brand's taking on. So when we're talking about AR, we also want to talk about everything around the AR itself. So we start with, when you're talking to a brand manager, you're talking to an account manager, or someone who's interested in AR experience. And when you get talking to the brand teams, when you're in the beginning of crafting your crafting the relationship, when you're looking into crafting the actual experience itself and what you're going to deliver as a proposal, you want to talk about things like goals. So for a brand is, what are you looking to achieve with this augmented reality experience? Are there certain metrics that we're looking for? Are we looking for impressions? Are we looking for views? Are we looking for app downloads? Is this brand looking to grow its database with an augmented reality experience? Is this brand looking to increase their brand perception rankings for a specific demographic, say 25 to 34-year-olds? Or is this brand looking to increase their market share with this AR experience? Are they looking to reduce churn so that they're not losing some of their customers to competitors? So what we really want to consider is, why are they pursuing this AR experience? Because once we can get an understanding of what is driving this AR experience and what metrics we need to hit, we're then able to craft an experience. We're able to craft an application that basically hits all of those points. Then it gets down to, making it real. Also building trust is you need to be able to show brands that you understand the brand that you're working with. So this comes down to creative. Is like, what are the brand colors? What is the typography and the fonts that they're using? And what is the brand messaging? How do they expose their brand to the rest of the world in all of their other campaigns? And understanding what their creative process is, understanding what their creative looks like on specific social channels or their website or other marketing campaigns is very important to build that trust with the brand, to say, I get it. I get what your brand is all about. I get how you're showcasing yourself to the world. And we're going to take all of that and we're going to bring that into the AR experience. And this shows brands, especially big brands, who are very specific about what you can put out and how you can put it out and what colors to use and what fonts to use. It shows them that you are the people they want to work with, because you get that they need to work within a specific sandbox and you're going to be able to deliver within that sandbox. It's another way to really increase trust with brands. And other two major points around the AR experience is, great. All right, now we have an AR experience that we built. So now what? If an AR experience is just there, we obviously have Niantic Campfire coming out where there's going to be discovery, but it's also going to be things around everything around the AR experience itself. Like, what is the distribution? What are the entry points? Are we going to leverage paid media? Are we going to leverage owned media? Are we going to leverage earned media? Everything from, how are we going to have this on a website with SEO to drive people to download the application? Are we going to have guests? Are we going to have influencers for the brand, whether paid or free? Talking about the experience, talking about the application, would then entices downloads. Are we going to run ads? Are we going to do pay-per-click campaigns or banner ads to drive people to be able to download this application or visit the experience? And then as well, that goes to the distribution of it. But then as well as, how else are we going to get people into entering this experience or entering a download or visiting the experience? Is this going to be done in an email campaign where it's either click to launch the App Store, or click to launch, get to the eighth wall experience? You can do this you can do this in an email campaign with a click that dynamically leads you to where you need to go. Or, there's more popular forms of marketing these days where people are leveraging text message campaigns. Can you have a link for a download there, or a link to the experience right in the text message campaign? Or if it's on a website, everybody's looking used to the QR codes these days. Are you going to have a QR code on your website that's going to allow you, for a download or get to the experience? Things like this is what really establishes trust with the brands, because you're not only just thinking about the AR or the content itself, you're thinking about everything else around it. And, I always go back to the point of AR to a lot of people is like quantum computing could be to us. And no offense if anybody is also involved in quantum computing here, but it's more of an abstract concept. And so in order for me to feel comfortable purchasing something that I don't know about, I want whoever's selling it to me to talk about everything else around it, making me feel comfortable about all the questions that I might have, but delivering the answers to those questions up front, or even asking those questions up front, is a really good way to establish trust with a brand. Because once again, it leads to, you are now the person that they want to work with, or you are now the agency that they want to work with, because you get it. You get that, that they're going to have a lot of questions and they want to feel like they're in good hands. And so this goes along right along the people part of what we talked about, from the people, product, and procurement. Next, making it real. There's a lot of people that like talking in creative terms. There's a lot of people that like talking about the experience itself and around the experience, but there's also a lot of people that think in terms of numbers and statistics and logic. And when you're selling to AR, especially to a group of people on the other side, there are going to be the creative folks, there are going to be the campaign folks, but there also are going to be the folks that are in the meeting that go based on statistics and logic. And so you also need to be able to deliver like the science behind the AR, and you need to be able to deliver some of the metrics behind AR experiences. Here we talk about things like AR delivers almost double 1.9 times the levels of visual attention compared to their non-AR equivalents. And so when we say non-AR equivalents, we say videos and images, which are also terminology that they're used to working with, right? We say things like memory encoding is 70% higher with augmented reality. We're talking about this experience that someone's going to interact with or they're going to play with. They're going to remember it 70% more than a traditional video or image campaign. And these are some of the statistics that really stick in people's minds. And there's some things that they can take away. If it's a brand manager or an account manager you're talking to, they need to be able to take this back to their VPs, or they need to be able to take these things back to their team that can help them really drive that experience and help them push this project through so that they can activate the experience. And then next we go to researching the brand. And this is something we do, anytime we work with a brand or anytime someone reaches out to us via email, asks or sends us an RFP, the very first thing we do is try to understand everything we can about that brand before we get into a first meeting with them. For a lot of brands, especially major companies, their shareholder goals, their investor goals, their brand goals, for any Fortune 500, G2000 company, this is all publicly available information, especially for public companies. They have their goals and everything listed right on their reports. And this was before we did a pitch to Visa. So we tried to understand everything that Visa was up to in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of strategic priorities. And we also tried to understand what some of their short-term and long-term goals were. And so this is just really getting deep into trying to understand who your customer is, what they're looking for, what their organization is leading towards as a company, so that you can deliver a pitch, you can deliver even those first conversations. You're best equipped to know, hey, look, you're looking to accelerate growth in Latin America, or you're looking to, build foundation in this specific area of the world. For Visa, we saw that they were heavily trying to focus on growing their consumer payment networks, looking for new flows and new sources of payments, and adding value-added services. So when we crafted our pitch towards Visa, we were then able to craft a few different experiences and a few different ideas that went right along their strategic priorities. And to them, they were very appreciative. They knew that we had looked at their goals. They knew that we had researched their company. And to them, they appreciate that, because it now shows once again that you're the people they want to work with. Is before we ever got into the room with Visa, we already know what they're looking for. We already know what their VPs and their managers are going to sign off on. Because if we pitch an experience that has nothing to do with their goals, that has nothing to do with their priorities in the short term or long term, you're never going to get sign off from the person who signs off on the payments. Especially in large organizations, they have a certain checklist, they have certain boxes they need to tick off before they're ever able to approve a payment. And so understanding who the brand is and what they're looking for before you even go into that first meeting is extremely important, and it buys you a lot of goodwill with everybody else on that brand side. And then resources for competitive analysis. Once again, this goes down to being the people that the brands want to work with. It's one thing to be able to develop AR for yourself or develop it for an agency, but another superpower to have, especially in today's day and age, is understanding what's happening in the industry as a whole, understanding what's happening on every platform out there, understanding what's happening in most of the verticals that you're looking to work within, whether that's sports or media or entertainment or retail. If you know that you're delivering experiences in this vertical, you want to understand the different types of AR campaigns that are happening all around the world for different brands, for different areas of that industry. Here specifically, we're talking about Lightship and the Eighth Wall platform. but it's always great to keep your finger on the cusp of what's happening everywhere else, because one, it's good for inspiration. Two, it's good for, understanding how other brands have achieved their objectives, but also just knowing what's happening in the industry in general, from the hardware side to the software side to the investment side to the mergers and acquisition side. It really prepares you for some of the questions that typically come up. A lot of times for us is questions come up about everything else that's happening in the industry, except for what's happening in the experience itself, or what we're talking about itself. And when you're able to have those answers right there at the snap of a finger, once again, it really builds trust with the client, it builds trust with the brand, and it makes them feel like you are the person, either the developer yourself or the agency that they want to work with. And so for us, some of the few of the things we found a lot of success in is, one, Artillery. They've got a great set of reports. You can go to their website. I believe it's $300 for every quarter. I'm not I'm not sponsored or paid by them. It's been a great resource. It's Artillery reports. One of the best resources that we've found in terms of what's happening in hardware and software and what's happening in the industry as a whole. AR Insider blog is a great blog. We have a few things like the Interactive Advertising Bureau reports. They always put out great reports that have like glossary of terms. They have metrics around AR campaigns. One of the other great things we're involved in is a VR ARA membership. They have a few great councils in the VR ARA. They're always talking about different verticals and different areas of AR and success. And it's a really good way to interface with other people in the industry. It's a few thousand people that have, are heavily invested in AR in their business and VR. And it's just really good to get networking and interfacing with other people in the industry, because when you're interfacing and networking and building your connections, you're always learning from the mistakes of others. You're learning what brands have done correctly. You're learning what agencies have done correctly. And it's just giving you a good overall view of the landscape and the world in augmented and virtual reality. Then as well, the information, the reality check newsletter that they put out, great resource. I believe it's every morning or every second morning I get an update to my email just on the latest what's happening in the industry. And that's their specific reality check. And then Haley, as well, you can share this out, is our Genius Intelligence folder. So this Genius Intelligence folder encompasses a few of the things that we've showed here, is like some Artillery reports, Interactive Advertising Bureau reports, just a lot of public facing information about glossary of terms, of what's happening in AR, VR, XR by vertical, and this is continuously being updated by us. So we've even started, I think lately, a metaverse section in there. So what are some information and resources around the metaverse? So everyone here, please feel free, if you to have access to that drive, extract anything else you need out of that drive, put it into your own, share it with clients. The whole point here is really to help others and educate others in what's happening in our industry. So we share this folder with a lot of our clients. We share this folder with a lot of brands that we work with, and it just gives them, I think it's like 15 to 20 hours of content that they can just go through on their own time. And it's another way to really build trust. So everyone here, please feel free to extract whatever you need out of that drive and leverage that for yourself to as well build trust and to, to build goodwill with any of the clients or brands that you might be working with. Next phase of building trust is really showing brands that you understand that there needs to be a process in order to work with them properly. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to charge you, $45,000 for this experience, and it'll be done in 2.5 months. See you then. That's it. For a lot of big brands, it doesn't create that trust by just saying, here's a price tag and I'll talk to you in a few months. What you really want to show brands is, once again, building trust is, we understand that this is a collaborative process. We want to work with you to ensure that you are comfortable with what we're doing. We want to give you visibility every step of the way. And we want to, give you certain specific deadlines so we're on track and that you're going to hit the launch date that you're looking for. For brands, two of the most important things for them is budget and timeline. No brand ever wants to go over budget, and no brand ever wants to miss their timeline. So really building these things in the very beginning and showing them that you understand that they have timelines that need to be hit, and you have reverse engineered those timelines, is extremely important for building trust. First thing we always do is we set up communication channels. Where we found a lot of success is a shared Slack. So using Slack and inviting the brand to a Slack Connect, just so that they have the ability to asynchronously communicate with you. Sometimes you don't want to provide your phone number, your WhatsApp, it gets a bit too personal, but providing a Slack channel where the brand can work with you and where you can respond to them and talk to them on your own time, it's a great way to build trust. You don't want to be immediately replying and talking to people all the time, because that's going to take away from your development time in your life, but just giving the ability for them to have a voice on something that's a bit more personal than email is a great way to kick off a relationship. And then also talking about, look, in our first meeting, we're going to talk about the concept. Then we're going to, refine the scope. We're going to refine the requirements. And then after this, what's going to happen is we're going to divide the responsibilities. We're in charge of development, but, by July 8th, we're going to need your brand's logos. We're going to need typography. We're going to need brand colors. We're going to need brand assets. This is what you're responsible for, because in order for me to hit my timeline, we need you to provide us things at specific times. And then this is where the division of responsibilities comes in, because it makes it absolutely clear what you need from the client and at what times you need it in order for you to deliver their experience successfully. And so dividing those responsibilities in the very beginning and putting timelines on them, extremely important. As well is, giving the brand some surety that things are moving, and giving them even just video updates of in progress work. Is sometimes we're developing experience, we're developing it with dummy assets. It might not be the final creative, but we have something in place of that. So even showing them that you'll be able to show them an experience with dummy assets to begin with is something that establishes a lot of trust, and it buys a lot of goodwill, is because you're showing things that are in progress or they're happening before the final experience. Then, the next phase is we've gotten a bit further along the experience. We've developed it with dummy assets. Now we've optimized, all the 3D assets that are going in here. We're now going to implement the final creative, and this is the date that it's going to happen. Lets them know when they're going to be able to experience this, or at least see a video or an update showing what's happening. Very good for working with the brands. And then especially with larger brands, something to note is typically there might be a legal review. They might have some internal QA. There might be, the final checks and balances between the brand teams, between the legal teams for sign off before the experience can go live. So even establishing that in the very beginning is, hey, I know we want this to go live on August 29th. But is there something that needs to happen prior to August 29th before we launch this experience? Because last thing you want is, August 29th is the date, you finish up on the 26th, and all of a sudden the brand says, hey, look, this has to go through legal. But showing that you understand up front that there might be some final check boxes that you need to tick, once again, establishes trust. Knowing that you understand their process and knowing that you respect their process buys a lot of goodwill with brands. And then once again, understanding this is going to be the launch date. And because we reverse engineered each one of the things that's going to happen leading to the launch date, we are in a good place to hit that launch date. And then moving on to statement of work. So this leads to the procurement piece. Once again, with large brands, very, very important, because if you cannot nail down a proper statement of work, their finance team, their procurement team, their sourcing team, they won't move forward with you. It's just a no. For large brands, especially large brands, they need to understand specifically in which buckets that their budget is hitting, because for them, they need to be able to allocate their budget into specific buckets. The ones that typically commonly come up are creative, engineering, project management, quality assurance, and administration. So this is very important for large brands, is you need to be able to say, all right, here's the price tag. It's $70,000 or $100,000. Here's where each one of those dollars is spent. And here it doesn't need to be exact. You know what I mean? Is your cost per hour is up to you. the hours, we always, if something's going to take us 20 hours, we're putting 28 to 32 hours on there to give ourselves that buffer, because not everything goes perfectly all the time, right? So here's where you have some wiggle room, but it's more so that, and also as well with large brands, important to note, they will try to negotiate at some points once you've hit a certain threshold. So also giving yourself a little bit of buffer is great to have. But the most important piece of this is if you're an agency and you're doing larger type contracts, you need to be able to fit within these buckets. But also important as an individual creator, working with brands, even if it is a small to medium-sized brand that doesn't require their budget fit into these specific buckets, giving them a breakdown of where your time is going to be spent establishes trust. Because even if you are, working as an individual creator, letting them know, hey, look, I'm allocating 16 hours for meetings between us over the next few months. I'm allocating this much time for dev work. I'm allocating this much time for concept work, and I'm allocating this much time for design work. It shows the brand that you are introspective of how you do your work, and you know how to manage your time. Because for a lot of people, even for yourself, this exercise is really great in order to really understand, like, all right, this is how much time I'm going to put into this project, because I might have 2 or 3 projects in parallel, and I need to be able to know when I'm at my maximum bandwidth. Because if you're trying to take on too many projects as an individual creator and you haven't managed your time properly, inevitably 1 or 2 of those projects is going to miss their deadline, or they're going to miss their launch date, and that's not something you want to do. So it's really good to start getting in the habit of, when you're figuring out what a project entails, is really breaking it down into specific components. And I know a lot of people do this, but they do miss out a few of the most important ones. Like design and dev is always in there, but concepting and meetings are the ones that a lot of individual creators we've seen typically leave out, because working with a brand, especially in AR, they're going to expect a meeting a week, and that takes an hour of your time. But also your prep work for that meeting takes an hour of your time, right? So that's 2 hours a week that you got to add on per project, for example, for the next 8 weeks of this project. And so when you're dividing your time, it's really good to understand that there is going to be meeting time, there is going to be meeting prep time, and there is going to be time for concepts in addition to the design and dev work. And this establishes, one, some great management skills for yourself, but 2, it establishes great trust with the brand. And with that, everyone, is basically our process that we follow to establish trust with the brand, show them that we are the people that you want to work with, show them one of the things we didn't touch on was a lot was the technical part of it, the product, but also having a website or having a deck that shows some of your previous works and the business objectives of those works. And what you've accomplished for other brands is a great portfolio. So really having a portfolio of your previous work to bring in, either on a website or on a openly available presentation, making sure that permissions are set for everyone. This is very important because we've realized, especially with a lot of big brands, we use Google internally at Genius, but a lot of brands' firewalls can't access Google files. So for us, we have our deck also on a slides.com file, so that anybody with the link can access it. So even just getting ahead of thinking that everybody I send my portfolio or presentation out to, some people might not have permissions. So let's get this in a place that's publicly available. Things like PDFs work, things like slides.com work, and just having, a dynamic presentation that showcases your previous work, or even work you've collaborated on, work you've designed, work that you've, even helped concept out. Sometimes as an individual creator or an agency that's just starting out, you don't have 20 projects behind your belt, but there are things that you've theorized, there are things that you've built internally, there are things that you've collaborated on, and that can all be used as a part of your portfolio. Not necessarily, you don't need to have 20 or 30 previous clients. This is how you get to building those clients, and getting there is showing your thinking behind it. Even all the demos you've done internally and talking about the business value or the marketing value of the demos that you've done is an extremely important selling point. So with that, I will leave it up to some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nav. Y'all, if you want to ask a question, please go ahead and raise your hand. If you haven't raised your hand in Zoom before, there's a little smiley face that says reactions. You click on that and then you can click raise hand. So go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on people in order. Yeah, Garrison.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. This is a great opportunity and all the information you gave was wonderful. But it seemed like with the business side of things, it seemed there were a lot of similarities to agile development. So I was wondering if when we go into these roles, besides agile development, is there any other like framework of development that you would suggest keeping in mind? Especially for someone like me who's just now butting into the AR VR experience, trying to find a team to settle in on. What were some easy transitions into the business for you?
Yeah, this typically goes along with the development methodology that works specifically for some projects. Some some projects for us. I'm not engineering itself, but the terminology we use internally. We agile, where there's Scrum, there's Kanban, whatever methodology works best internally. But sometimes clients as well request like the bi-weekly sprint updates or any of that. So just showing them that you understand, especially if you're working with the project manager on their side, that you understand their what methodologies that they're comfortable working with, but also being able to explain that if there's a methodology that you prefer, why that's the best for this project. And that's a great point, because this does happen very often. Is after the project is kicked off, it's now passed along to their project manager who wants to know more about your process, right? So even bringing that up in the beginning is a great way to establish trust if there's a PM on the other side.
Awesome. Ben, you had your hand up next.
Mine is more of a request and a question. I was hoping the drive that you mentioned, can you share the link for us?
Yep, I can. Here, let me just drop it into the chat here.
Beautiful, thanks. I guess, yeah, that was it.
No worries. There we go. Get link. All right, here we go. Dropped into the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Nav.
Thank you.
Tom, you had your hand up next.
Sure, thanks. Great prezzo. One of the questions I had is how much of the pitch and how many pitch meetings are there? Like, is it mostly focused on the creative and not so much on the technical? Or does there come a point where there are some technical people where you get nitty gritty? Or is a lot of the time these customers just have no clue about the technical aspect and just are expecting magic and they just want to talk about the pretty pictures?
Most of the time, what we get a lot of is abstract concepts and talking about everything around AR. So it doesn't get very technical in the beginning. When you work with the Fortune 500 brands, typically they do have the technical folks that come in to evaluate after. But I'd say 90% of the meetings that we take is they don't know much about AR. They've just heard that AR is this new cool thing, or if it's Nissan come to you, is they've heard Toyota's tried AR. Now that they've been tasked to find an AR company that can help them deliver on their goals. So in the beginning, this is why we talk about everything around AR, because you're not going to find a lot of technical folks for 90% of your meetings. So you really want to show them everything around AR. This is for another session, but what a lot of what we do as well is we do a lunch and learn with brands as well sometimes to talk about the different areas of AR, right? So we explain to them what a 3D model is, or we explain to them what plane tracking means, or we explain to them what AR analytics means. So it's always good as well to keep in the back of your mind, if it's a brand that completely has no idea, but it's, say if you're working with an agency that's trying to sell to AR to 10 of their clients, then it is valuable as well to do a lunch and learn meeting with them where you say, hey guys, or hey everyone, we'd love to get you on a meeting with your brand managers, your account managers, and just talk through for half an hour what AR is, where it's being used, and some of the terminology around it. Works really well. But a lot of the time, like we said, is they don't know much about what AR is. They've just heard from this person or that person or this brand or their manager to go find an agency to do this or a developer to do this.
Awesome. And then one more small follow-up. If you work with a company like, say, Disney, who has a bunch of creative people in-house, how do you schedule your, like, okay, we're going to need this 3D model, we're going to need this animation bit from your side of the house, because you obviously have the creators and you're going to want to make sure that it's on brand, your animations are on point and all that sort of stuff? Or do they just or even for creative companies, do they still take a sort of hands-off approach and are like, you know, our assets, you kind of just stick with the color scheme?
Yeah, so that depends. Some companies prefer to provide their own assets, and some a lot for us, we try to do all the development in-house. So if it's like 3D models and all that sort of stuff, we try to do it in-house to make sure everything's optimized for the experience. Because, you know, as well as we do, is like, we know what's going to create load on the application or create load on the experience, right? But a lot of brands, they don't know that, you know, they can't just take a gigabyte CAD file and get it over to you for the experience, right? Like that, it needs to be optimized. And so we prefer to do the development work in-house. But if not, we provide them a spec. You know, this is the amount of polys it needs to hit. Here's the megabyte limit. And we'd like to have it by this date. And if it's things like, you know, even getting, it's very difficult sometimes. It's like getting their brand book over to you or getting their fonts and their colors, is we just give them a deadline. Like, all right, hey, we're looking to start development next Wednesday. By next Monday, if you could have the type, the fonts, the color schemes, all that over to us. It's you know, just setting those expectations in the beginning. It's always a good idea, as opposed to leaving it ambiguous. Is just getting ahead of it and saying, this is what we're going to need and this is when we'll need it. And if they do prefer, like we said, to do some of the development themselves, is giving them a very specific spec to work within, and even just like a spec that's more favorable to us, right? Like if you need something that's you know, 3 megabytes, you know, tell them 2.5. Or if you need that something that's 10,000 polys, tell them, you know, 8,000, so that it's more favorable to the development.
Thanks for those questions, Tom. Divkar, what do you got?
Yes, hi. So I mean, what if, like, for right now, as I've said, like if you do something like SMS marketing, something using the, I mean, sending the application link, something like that. Like, what if we didn't reach the, I mean, reach of the application rate for the brand expectation?
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch the tail end of that.
So I mean, what if the, I mean, what if the brand didn't reach to our, I mean, didn't reach to their reach expectations, something like they expect something like 10 million, but they reach something like only 5 million.
Oh yeah, so for us, we don't, the ownership of the reach typically falls on the brand, right? All we can do is suggest the types of campaigns that are going to be successful. You know, we say a text message campaign has worked here, or an email campaign has worked here. But, you know, for us, it is good to know about what works for ads and what works for, you know, targeting and retargeting and all this. But for us, we're AR developers, right? We're AR agencies.
Yeah.
If you don't claim to know about the distribution of ads or reach or any of that, but you do know the fundamentals of, look, you can run an ad that can drive users to this experience. Typically working with, you know, a medium to small, large brand, they're already going to know what type of targeting and ads work for their brand. So it's not really on you to be able to ensure that they hit their targets. All you can do as a developer, or all you can do as the agency, is suggest some of the best practices that you've seen. And then for them, allow them to take ownership from there. But you know, when you get into the game of like promising reach or promising expressions or engagement, you're setting yourself up sometimes for like setting yourself up to be more involved than you need to be, right? You're delivering an AR experience and you're giving all of the information for that brand to take that experience and deliver it to their audience in the best way possible. But you know, if you don't want to get into the world of claiming how to run ads or do any of that, I would stay away from that conversation.
Okay, so
I'm just going to add on to, oh, go ahead, Divkar.
Yes, you can continue.
Oh, I was going to add on to what Nav said, actually. So like in the context of Lightship, say I have a company that's come to me, a shoe brand that's like, we do these hype drops and we get way too many people in our retail store at once. We want to kind of streamline them somewhere else and make them trickle in. Then as a developer, I would probably say, okay, then I don't want to build just a regular lightship experience inside this shoe brand's app. I want to do something with VPS where they're like taking a tour around the city. And once they hit all 5 stops, then they have a token to then come get their hype drop from my store. And that kind of solves their business challenge. So, you know, the best, like Nav is saying, you can't guarantee like who's going to participate or how much reach you're going to have, but you can suggest the best practices for whichever tool you're using.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Diana?
So your mic
You
is
might
muted.
still be muted.
Yes, typically. Thank you. Okay, my question for now, in this sense, is more about business. So to maintain an agency, right, like that, how do you make sure that you always have those projects in the pipeline? You know, like how do you make sure at this point, for example, in your agency, that you're getting the projects that you need for your agency?
Yeah. And so for us, that falls along with we do a lot of marketing. We have a sales team for the agency. So one is like the continuous inbound and outbound marketing efforts. So for us, we have a partner network. We have a monthly newsletter. We put out a lot of content on the marketing value of AR, on the business value of AR. We do email reach outs. Our sales team has their list of people that they talk to, and they make it a point that once a month they touch base with their point of contact at the other brand. And so for us right now, it's a ton of marketing efforts and it's a ton of sales efforts that go into it. But the thing is, as we all know, is we want to manage our own internal expectations. AR is still new, right? So on top of your marketing and on top of your sales efforts, the best thing to do is with current clients is create continuity within current clients. And this is why we talk about trust. This is why we talk about building relationships, because the best client is one that keeps coming back and back and back. And so for us at Genius, a lot of the work we do, I'd say more than 70% of the work we do is from returning clients. It's continuous activations. We show them that we are the people you want to work with. We understand your brand. We understand your audience. We understand your demographics, and we can continue to deliver incremental AR experiences for you above and beyond, right? So threefold: sales. If you have the ability to have a sales team, great. If not, dedicating some of your time, not just in development work, but also dedicating some of your time to try to get speaking engagements, to try to get yourself out there, to try to write a blog about augmented reality. And at the very least, having a website with some SEO and all that around it, in addition to, social channels that talk about the work you do or showcase some of the work you do. Because as of right now, there's still a huge opportunity to use the correct keywords, to use the correct metadata, to put things on, YouTube or your website or anywhere on the internet, and talking about things like, the augmented reality for marketing or augmented reality for sports or augmented reality for entertainment. Just because there isn't a ton of content out there right now, there's still a huge opportunity for all of us to get out there and start putting out videos and content and blogs and things that establish us as the experts. In a year from now, a year and a half from now, things are going to be a lot more saturated. But as of right now, there's a ton that you guys can do, everyone here can do to get themselves out there and basically establish a presence.
That's great. Thank you so much. So basically, yeah, like to get the new clients, leverage the social media. For the clients that exist already, try to create strategies for retention, I guess, because based on the quality of work. Okay.
Exactly. Retention based on the quality of work, one, but also based on the fact that you understand them and their brand and their audience, right? And this is what we talk about, trust a lot. And typically when you deliver for one brand, they will refer you to another brand. So really making sure your customer service is on point for the current work you have, but also whether you're an agency or an individual, is if you're an individual and you're focused on client work, 70-80% of the time, you do want to make sure that you're getting yourself out there at least 20% of the time to secure your future work, right? Because it's whether you're an agency or an individual, it's the continuity of your business or the continuity of your work is what's really going to drive you into the future. So you can't just be only focused on development. It has to be, you have to be a business as an individual as well.
Thank you. And very quickly, I'm just gonna ask this quickly. When you have maybe you don't have any sales at the moment, for example, and how do you explain, like, from that particular client, right? How do you explain to a new company, like you're kind of sending an email or you feel interested about certain company? How do you break, that first barrier and explain why AR makes sense, just in a few sentences or something? Like, how do you explain the value when the company is not doing AR at the moment?
Yeah, when the company's not doing AR at the moment, you can say, hey, for example, I'll just say, hey, I've noticed that, I've noticed one of your video ads got a lot of reach and attention. We work with a technology called augmented reality, in which, attention is double the amount. So based on the success you've seen on some of your video ads, we think that augmented reality could be a great fit for your company. Or, hey, we've noticed your brand is really big on storytelling. Have you heard of this new medium, augmented reality, which is the next dimension of storytelling, right? So it's two-part: is one, understanding and giving them a compliment on something they're already doing. That's great, but also showing how augmented reality can enhance what they're doing, right? Because you don't ever want to tell someone they're doing something wrong. You want to tell them, this is what we see that you're doing, and we see an opportunity to leverage this new, exciting, innovative technology to really drive your brand into the future, right? And that's where we found a lot of success.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited because that part is a little bit tricky. Like when you just want to show what you're doing, but you don't know how to explain the person the value of AR. One thing is developing, but another thing is selling the thing. So thank you so much. Deeply appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I know
Stratton. One more, Haley.
Okay, cool. Stratton,
Awesome.
how about you?
I have a fairly small question, so that helps out. This is along the lines of like promoting yourself. How do you go about creating media kits for your work, and maybe what are some of the things you do to document your work?
Yeah. So for us, where we've found a lot of great success is, let me just show you this. This would be the best way to explain it, is because AR is, a difficult thing to just explain it, over the phone or on a video call. It's like, trying to explain TV over the radio. Is we try to use a lot of examples where possible. So for us is showcasing our work in a way. Can you guys see my screen? So for us is we show some of our past work in the context of how it looks in a phone as a video, right? So people can wrap their head around, oh, this is augmented reality. Some people, just showing them. And then for us, we always talk about, like we said, the business impact that, that it's had, and why we did it, who the client was, and what the platform was. So for us is we always try to showcase everything we've done in terms of in videos embedded in phones or embedded in mobile devices, so that clients and customers can understand what the experience is all about, right? And so done this for basically every one of our clients is the business impact. Sometimes we'll have a link to a video. We sometimes will attach statistics, right? Like here was a big statistic, average 6 minutes engagement time for 100,000 unique users. So for us, we try to pack as much punch into our presentation, and we always talk about what the business impact of the experience was. If you can show business impact, you can show your previous work, and you can show metrics, it's always great. And like we said, if you don't have a ton of projects under your belt yet, you can still put some of the test projects that you've developed internally and say, this fits along the marketing funnel because, or this fits along the advertising funnel because. For us, a lot of the projects we've done on other platforms, which are just generic projects where you can walk into a virtual shop or you can place generic furniture in your home. We've always talked about it in the sense of, imagine you're a furniture store and you can place this furniture in your home and move it around and change the color. Or imagine you're a retail shop and you can walk into this virtual store and imagine placing your brand assets there. So even if you don't particularly have a ton of work behind your belt, is you can create generic type work that fits along the marketing and advertising funnel to show brands how their brand could be placed inside of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nav. It's always a pleasure to have you. I think this was an extremely valuable session for our community. Of course, would love to have you back, community. If there are things that you are looking for out of these sessions, maybe we're able to bring Nav back, or maybe there's another topic that you want to explore, let us know. You had great questions today too, which were just like mind-blowing, and we got even more nuggets from Nav. So appreciate everybody's engagement. Nav, especially appreciate you. Go out there and build some cool shit, y'all. We're here to help. Let us know what you need, but hope y'all have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you at the Templars Challenge. Talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.